Hello, I am audible to all of you. Please write in the chat box if I am audible. Mhm. Hello everyone, good evening. Welcome to today's day one of the workshop on banking laws and Negotiable Instruments Act 1881. Organized. My name is Parasjo and I am your host for the today's session. To kickstart today's workshop, let me share a bit about who is Legal Vidya and what we stand at Legal Vidya. Legal Vidya was established in the 2021 with a mission to revolutionize legal education through the power of online learning. We are more than just a platform. We are more than just a platform. We are a community of passionate learners and legal professionals. From internships and workshops to webinars and comprehensive courses like the one you have joined today, we offer a wide range of opportunities to help you grow in the legal field. What makes us unique is our focus on not just theoretical learning but also practical application through real world case studies, discussions, and mentorships. Enhance your legal expertise in banking law and financial regulations with our intensive workshop designed to provide in depth knowledge and practical insights. This workshop is perfect for law students, legal professionals, and banking sector aspirants seeking a comprehensive understanding of crucial financial regulations. On day one, we will explore the RBI Act and Banking Regulations Act, focusing on the role of the Reserve Bank of India in regulating the banking sector. Participants will gain insights into key provisions of the Banking Regulation Act, covering aspects like compliance, licensing, and banking policies essential for financial institutions. Day 2 will cover the Negotiable Instruments Act, delving into fundamental concepts such as promissory notes, bills of exchange, and checks. A major highlight will be the legal aspects surrounding the dishonour of checks under Section 138 along with relevant case laws. On day 3, we will cover Recovery of Debts and the Bankruptcy Act and the Securitization and Reconstruction of Financial Acts and Enforcement of Security Interest. Now, I am pleased to introduce our esteemed speaker for today's webinar, Professor Menka Sharma ma'am. She is a multifaceted legal professional with a rich academic and practical background. Currently a visiting faculty member at Maharashtra National Law University, Mumbai, and Jitendra Chauhan College of Law. She is also a PhD candidate and a practicing advocate, enrolled with the Bombay High Court. Professor Sharma's career spans both industry and academia. She has held key positions at prominent corporations such as Thomson Reuters and Minecraft, gaining valuable corporate experience. With over 8 years of teaching experience at esteemed institutions like SNDT, NMIMS, Kirit Metala College, and Niranjana Majita College, she is widely recognized for her ability to simplify complex legal concepts for her students. Her commitment to academia extends beyond teaching as she actively engages in the teaching. Beyond academics, Professor Sharma ma'am has honed her litigation skills through her work in high courts and session courts across India, including Delhi, Pune, Kolkata, and Guwahati. Apart from her legal and academic pursuits, ma'am is a dedicated environmentalist. As a volunteer with the Isha Foundation, she actively contributes to environmental conservation efforts, focusing on soil and river rejuvenation through free plantation initiatives. Her dedication to both the legal profession and social causes makes her a truly inspiring speaker for today's session. Just give me a second. The webinar on the emerging trends and challenges in provisions governing women laws and contemporary issues is for the law students, law professionals, and anyone interested in general law. This webinar serves as a pre-session to our upcoming 10-week certificate course on women's law, providing exclusive insights into crucial topics. Don't miss this opportunity to enhance your expertise and be part of engaging discussion. Now, the session is being recorded, and this recording will be shared with all registrants. I kindly ask
Hello, good evening, everyone. Is my voice audible to everyone? Okay, I think Legal Vidya was facing some issue with the network. So we'll start not without wasting much time. We'll start with the session. Uh, First of all, I think most of you would be the obviously the law students, and some of you would be the professionals, and you want to brush up within this 3 day periods of what is banking law is all about. So today is a day we will discuss about your RBI Act and Banking Regulation Act. So before starting with both the acts, we'll start uh, with the introduction and the history. So for any subject, we have to know the history of that subject, as in when did the concept of the that particular topic, say for in our case the banking system, when did it start? Banking is a very recent thing, recent trend, as in it has been started off late, especially after during and after the independence. But we see it as a bank in a structural way. But the concept of banking had been always there. Let's say even 2000 years before Christ. So how did it work? Any person who was rich, a money lender or a money exchanger, he would work, obviously he would work as a money exchanger, and he would work as a bank. The basically the function of the bank. I'll start with the slide. I think Legal Vidya was supposed to present, so I'll start with the slide myself. Just a minute. Okay, yes, thank you for sharing. Hmm. Come to the next slide. Next slide, please. Next. Before starting with the what is the history of your banking system, so we'll start with the meaning of the term bank, okay, which has been derived from the term banco. It is an Italian term. As we know, the European countries and Western countries, Rome and everything were so developed, and all these concepts, and we have so many other jurisprudence philosophers. We know all the philosophy from there itself. So this term banco, which literally means nothing but the bench. What do you mean by bench? As in the money lenders and the money exchanger would sit on a bench, okay, and they would display those coins and they would be working as a bank. So the concept, and especially even the temples where the priest or the rich people would come, there were grains and there was barter system. So all of them would function like a bank. Primarily, the functions of the bank would be to accept a deposit and to grant loan. So this also makes a difference with NBFCs, when you talk about bank and NBFCs would also trade into other material. Okay. And the bank, the moment it would start with other businesses, it would not be a bank anymore, but it would be only a NBFCs. In order to be a bank, you have to primarily focus on only the accepting of the deposit and granting of the loan. This is an ongoing process. So you see the definition under section 5C, which means banking company is a bank, any company which transacts in the business of banking. What do you mean by banking? Any company which do the business of banking is a banking company. Now, what is banking? Banking under section 5B means accepting. Accepting for what? For the purpose of lending. Same amount which you are accepting from the public, you are lending it to them. You are granting to them as a loan, or you are using those money as investment, okay, of that deposits of the money from the public. Again, the duty here is any moment the public who has deposited their amount, they would have to, the bank is liable to repay on demand. You see the sentence, repayable on demand, or otherwise. On demand means any moment they come, or otherwise would be other modes of withdrawing, like it could be a net banking, it could be a ATM, it could be a check or anything, and withdrawable by check, draft, order, or otherwise. So this is the definition of your banking, bank, and primary functions of the bank. Come to your next slide. Next, please. Okay, so next would be your history. So history, we would not go for much longer around your 5000 BC before Christ, but in the recent trends, what happened before independence, just before independence, the British East India Company had come. It was a trading company. It came to, import and export businesses, and somehow it was successful in ruling our country, and it had established its own banks. Okay, those banks were all private. That means the people from public, especially the poorer people or people who would be from the backward classes or scheduled classes or poor people, would definitely have no access to the bank. Okay, and but the Britishers, because at that time they were ruling, and plus the rich class of Indian would be having their bank accounts. They were the sahukars and jamindars. You know what do you mean by jamindars, and what was the need of banking? Jamindars were the people who would charge you a very high rate of interest. They oppress the people. I don't have to explain you about jamindari system or sahukar system. There was a dire need of bringing changes, where the people would also be having an excess. So yet it was only a private banks during the time of era. All the banks, including, okay, I'll not do much in detail about your East India Company. We'll come to your banks, which was the first bank of India established by your Britishers, where in the year 16, come to your next slide. The important year would be, please come to the next slide. In the year 1683, we had the Madras Bank. Then in the year 1770, we had the first bank which would print. That was the Bank of Hindustan. Yeah, these are the important event when we had the banks in India. So in the year 1806 to 1842, you will see there were the 3 presidency banks. These presidency banks were obviously established by the Britishers. These 3 presidency states you know about, the Bengal, Madras, and Bombay. Okay. So what happened next? In the year 1858, the East India Company, they stopped the British rule, and they started happening the joint stock companies as well. These 3 companies, this 3 presidency company, the banks, Bengal, Madras, and Bombay, were then clubbed into one bank in the year 1921. 1921, these three banks were clubbed together and we got a new Imperial Bank of India. Okay, immediately followed by that year, we had the Great Depression. All of you would be aware what is Great Depression. Okay, this is the time of recession and economically worldwide, all the countries were suffering. And that's when there was a dire need of regulating the banks, not just across the other countries, but in India as well. So in India, for the first time in the year 1934, we had RBI Act, which led to the establishment of RBI Bank in the year 1935. So you know the reason why RBI Bank came into the picture. It was because of Great Depression. Okay, 1929 we had the Great Depression, and the next after 4-5 years we had the RBI. Before 1929, the Great Depressions, we also had certain issues in the year 1914 to 1918. That was your First World War. The screen is not visible. Is it visible now? Please give a thumbs up. Yeah. Okay. The recordings would be obviously available. So I think I'll share the PPT as well. Not a problem. So in the year 1914 to 1918, that was also a problematic year. The entire world was going through the World War. And definitely, if World War has, so definitely there would be a problem economically as well. Right? So that was also the reason of having your RBI Bank by passing of RBI Act. See, the RBI Bank was a central bank. For the first time, India got the Central Bank of India, which would regulate all the other banks existing in the country. But you will also see that RBI Bank was very unique bank, and the entire world, that it was the only bank which is central, but it was a private bank at that time, right? All the central bank has to be public, but this RBI Bank in our country, it was a private bank at that time. Only after the independence, we had nationalized our RBI Bank. So next we had your Banking Regulation Act in the year 1949. Why the year 1949? Because it was following after your independence. The RBI Act, though it was good law for regulating all the banks, but still there were some laws which were missing, which would regulate, and we had a separate act, that is your Banking Regulation Act. Today we will discuss both your RBI Act and Banking Regulation Act. After independence, we also had, about this bank, RBI Bank, and 1955 we got SBI Bank. But SBI Bank is the oldest bank even before your RBI. The reason is the Imperial Bank, which were actually the presidency banks of Bombay, Bengal, and Madras, clubbed into your Imperial Bank 1921. The same Imperial Bank was then in the year 1955 nationalized into your SBI Bank. So SBI Bank was not a new bank actually. It's the one of the oldest banks during the era of since 1806 to 1842, the presidency banks. We can come to the next slide, please. Very important, after independence, now we have RBI Bank, we have SBI Bank, we have the RBI Act, we have the Banking Regulation Act. But you will see there are some more new evolutions happening in our country in the year 1970. That was nationalization. What do you mean by nationalization? So for the first time, RBI was already nationalized after your the independence. Then even your SBI Bank in the year 1955, it was nationalized. The reason of being nationalized, what do you mean by nationalized? Come to your next slide. What do you mean by nationalization? Could anyone answer in the chat? So as you can see from your slide, or I hope all of you know, nationalization is nothing but the opposite of your privatization. right? प्राइवेट कंपनीज जो होते हैं, प्राइवेट बैंक्स जो होते हैं, उनका एग्जैक्टली ऑपोजिट होता है. दैट मीन्स इट इज ओन्ड बाय द गवर्नमेंट. ओके, सो nationalization happened in the year 1970 through the act passed in the year 1969. 1969 was actually only the ordinances. The act also did not came into force, yet they nationalized 14 private banks. The reason was, what is the reason of nationalization? That the common people, the public would also be having access. Okay. Though there are many claims, people would say that nationalization is like, again, it's a very long debate. In the same year, we also had a very important and a landmark case called the R.C. Cooper case, that is Rustam Kawasji Cooper versus Union of India, 1970 case. Why did he file this case? Because he was a victim. Yeah, it is hand over to government. Yes, 1969, 14 banks were nationalized. You are correct. So, uh, uh, what happened was, this person, the R.C. Cooper, was a victim. He had a big share in those banks. Okay, he was a shareholder in these banks, and obviously he would not like if suddenly one day he's working and the government is owning his banks, right? Completely. That's the reason he filed the case. It's a very long debate. We will not address this topic in entirety right now. If you have any curiosity about this related, we might have a separate topic, separate seminar for that. So the nationalization happened in the year 1969. The second, again, we had one more nationalization in the year 1980. Okay. In the year 1980, we had another 6 private banks which were nationalized. Okay, one more point. In the case of R.C. Cooper, after the filing of the case, the Supreme Court held that the act was not, it was not constitutional, and it was now it was struck down. Fine. Then in the year 1980, we had the nationalization of next 6 banks. What is the objective of nationalization? So number one would be that even the poor, you can come to your next slide. The poor people or the SC and STs can participate in the nation's socio-economic development. So there is one important case law called as the Tara Chand versus the Chairman and Disciplinary Authority. The next important point under your nationalization, the object of nationalization would be to render the largest goods to the largest number of people. See, before nationalization, it was limited only to the rich people, right? Even you know how untouchability used to prevail before independence and before having constitution. Even even after having constitutions, there are still there were many other social evils which were practiced, like sati, untouchability. All those things were still there despite having the constitution. So the one of the objective in your economic sector, in the banking sector, was to render the largest goods. That is, all the people from all the classes could have access in your banks. Then this nationalization upholds Articles 46 and Article 38, that is your socio-economic justice and the distribution of material resources to elongate that purpose. Now, the persons who are working in this nationalized bank, they are the employees of the bank who would work as the trustee of the society. They bear the responsibility. That means they are like public servant, right? A public government bank hai, like especially the SBI bank. They cannot deny the access to the public. Yes, why is it so funny? They cannot deny the access to the other people. Next, please move the slide. Please move the slide. Okay, these are the impact of nationalization on banking and the objectives. Already discussed this point. Next slide, please. Next slide. Okay, before that, I would also like to tell you the definition of banking. Okay, we have already covered that. So we'll start with the RBI Bank. So what is the RBI Act, and what is the importance of the Banking Regulation Act? So you know now that RBI Act was constituted. The importance of RBI Bank would be, to regulate the money in the country. So it was established in the year 1935, 1st of April, under the Act of 1934. Who is the governor of RBI currently? Can you please write down over in the chat? He has been changed, right? Yes. So the first governor would be your Osborne Smith. And previously, before this, we had Shaktikanta Das. Currently, in the year 2024, yes, 2024. No, in the year 2024, December, we have a new governor. His name is Sanjay Malhotra. Okay, you need to know what is currently current affairs. Sanjay Malhotra is all over in the news. He had got a lot of changes. He has brought the interest rates has been changed, right? A lot of improvement and changes has been seen. So we know that RBI Bank has been nationalized on 1st of Jan 1949. You can write down this the dates. Then it was nationalized by the Act of RBI, within bracket, Transfer to Public Ownership Act of 1948. So before this, the RBI Bank was also a private bank, and now we know the RBI is a central bank which would regulate all the other banks. Before starting with the sections of the Act, we'll start the objective and then do the power of the RBI. So the objective of the Act would be, number one, to maintain the financial stability in India, in our country. Okay, the country has to be financially stable. If there is the inflation rate, we'll discuss about what is inflation. If the inflation is too high or there is depletion, then it would create a problem in the country. It would also regulate the issue of bank notes. It would maintain the reserve. There would be a fund, okay, to secure the stability, right? Definitely, RBI would be responsible. Can you repeat your last statement? Which timeline? About the nationalization time period. In the year 1948, we had the RBI Transfer to Public and Ownership Act. This is the act which made our RBI Act from private to central bank. Okay. Then we had the objective of the act would also be to operate the currency and the credit system of the country to bring the advantage to the country. Before RBI, we had Imperial Bank, that is SBI. Yeah, we discussed about the history of SBI, but SBI was never a centralized bank. RBI was always the first centralized bank, okay, central bank of our country. Though SBI is older than RBI. So that is Imperial Bank. Next is the RBI. The objective of RBI would also be to maintain the price stability. So we will discuss your objectives and power of RBI in your next slide. Come to the next slide, please. Please change the slide. Yeah, next. Next. Okay, so role number one, that is RBI's role to issue the currency notes. Even the kids would know that RBI's the issuing of currency notes would not be possible that all the other banks would also be printing the currency, right? There should be authenticity. Every banknote carries its own banknote number. There should be only one person who would be issuing that currency note, and that is your RBI. The section number 22, 23, 24, 25, all these sections of your banking regulation. I'll give you the important sections as well. So this section talks about your issuing of the currency notes. The currency notes would always be issued against your security of gold or exchange bill or government bonds. So ऐसा नहीं है कि RBI के हाथ में power है currency issue करने का. So it would issue any number of amount. You know, as a child, it's a joke. So which bank is to be first nationalized out of those 14 banks? Or you mean about the RBI and SBI? I'll address this question later. So ऐसा नहीं है कि like it's as a child you would have a fancy feeling that can RBI, if RBI could public print the note, issue the currency notes, why it is not issuing a lot of money? You cannot issue money like that. You cannot issue currency like that. You have to always issue the notes how much, whatever the value the country is already possessing or the RBI issue department has against those security or exchange, right? जो कंट्री का इकोनॉमी है, नहीं तो फिर हाउ विल यू डिसाइड दैट दिस पर्टिकुलर कंट्री इज पुअर, this the other particular country is developing, or the next country is very rich? It is because of the economy they have, the resources they have. Okay, next slide please. Your next power of RBI, come to your next slide. Yeah, the RBI, it's a central bank. They would act as a banker to all the other banks. What do you mean by banker to other banks? जैसे हमारा बैंक है, for example, I have a bank account with HDFC Bank. So every time I have to do a transaction, SBI does it for me in my behalf. चाहे वो UPI हो या HDFC का debit card हो या anyway, the HDFC is my agent, right? It is a banker to me. Similarly, all the other banks, in order to carry out, उनका भी खुद का बैलेंस शीट होता है, liabilities, assets होते हैं, वो भी अपना खर्चा करते हैं, तो कैसे करेंगे? So they also have to do it through other mode, through other banker. So who is that particular banker? It is the RBI. जैसे हम अपना डिपॉजिट करते हैं with a particular bank, all the other banks would be depositing their fund with the RBI. The commercial banks, there are many other types of banks with respect to their objectives, like commercial banks हो गए, private banks है, public sector bank है, cooperative banks है, agricultural banks है. All these banks, all the banks would come under your RBI. RBI is the apex bank, father of all the banks. Okay, at the top. It is not answerable to any other bank. All the banks are answerable to RBI. So it would give, RBI would also give regulations and directions to the directions of RBI would give the directions to other banks. Each bank has to maintain the reserves with the RBI, already discussed, and RBI also grant loan to this other bank. कोई भी बैंक को जरूरत है, whenever they need the this loan, they would be taking it from the RBI. Next slide, please. So first of all, RBI is banker to all the other banks. Now we are discussing about your government. So RBI is also the banker of the government, your state government, your central government, your local authority, your local government. RBI is a banker. That means the government. अगर कोई state को, Maharashtra state को, can RBI grant loans to individual? Not at all. You cannot have, you do not maintain accounts with the RBI, right? If you do not maintain account, how will they grant loan to you? And the list of banks which were nationalized, the 14 list banks, which your previous question, I'll give those list as well. Do not worry. So RBI makes transaction on behalf of the central. अगर कोई contract pass करना है, railway ministry हो गया, और कोई भी department हो गया government का, right? So they have to do a transaction through a bank. That would be your RBI bank. It pays, the RBI pays tax on behalf of the government because it represents the government. It makes the deposits on behalf of the government. That is, the government would be maintaining the fund with the RBI. Government, the RBI would represent government internationally. India को represent करना है, that would be RBI. Government does foreign transactions through, in which conditions RBI grant loans. In case the bank has the necessity, right? All if the bank are in need, dire need of running their businesses, okay? जैसे हम grant loan लेते हैं for whatever reason, the other banks, when they require, they can take loan from the bank. So government does foreign transactions through RBI. RBI maintain foreign reserves, foreign exchange reserve. What do you mean by foreign exchange reserve? Okay, the foreign currency, the dollars, the euro, they have to maintain that as well. And they also have to maintain that the foreign currency does not have to it does not fluctuate much. So RBI gives financial advice like a CA. Okay, RBI is the one. Come to the next slide. RBI is the one would be your, researching into a lot of things. They would be also giving financial advice to the government. Okay, कहाँ पे investment करना है, जो भी knowledge है RBI से मिलेगा to the government. Next is RBI's role in exchange rate management. Okay, we spoke about maintaining the foreign currency by the RBI. It also has a role in exchanging rate management. So I think 20 years ago, when I was also a kid, we heard that 50 rupees is $1. That what I knew. Okay, dollar is very expensive. It is, rupees 50 देने पर $1 मिलता है. Which is now the case is somewhere around 87 rupees. Okay, it has over the period of time increased a lot. Plus the euro would be around somewhere around 90 plus. Now 88, yes. So RBI also, what does it do? It tries to maintain that the rate should not fluctuate much. Okay, foreign currency for export and export deficit. Okay, this is a good information. Okay, so the RBI would be maintaining that the currency rate should not exchange. ये difference जो है ज़्यादा ना बढ़े. If possible, let us also go back that the currency rate that we also हमारा Indian rupees का भी value बढ़ जाए. That would be the target of the RBI. Next slide. We will see how does the RBI do that. RBI's role in credit control. Credit control हो गया मतलब your money, controlling the money in the country. How will it control the money? That means अगर आप कौन लोन देता है बैंकों को, we take loan from the banks, bank take loan from the RBI, right? We deposit money in the normal banks, and please zoom it, the PPT, that's fine for me. Okay, so like how we deposit with the bank, the banks would be depositing the money with the RBI. Right, so RBI would be using different tools. We will discuss what is CSR, that is cash reserve ratio. Okay, what is bank rate, cash reserve ratio. Already the points are mentioned here that you have to maintain a certain amount of reserve with the RBI. We will see how it helps in fluctuating and how does it impact your inflation. Bank rate is the other way of controlling that inflation. Bank rate is the rate at which the RBI grant loan to the banks. Yes, and the bank would further grant loan to the normal public. RBI would control the money supply in the country, and so it would control the inflation. We will see this in detail. Come to your next slide. RBI's promotional and developmental role. We know before RBI was a private bank. We know that people did not had access to your banks. There were other concepts like untouchability prevailing where people would not have access. But now see the change. 2025, everyone is equal, right? And everyone, there is no difference between any of. What is the question, Sony? You can write in the chat box. So what does RBI do? That RBI promotes banking in every sector of the society. That means, let's say NABARD in case of your agriculture, IDBI in your industrial development. I'll discuss what is repo rate. We have yet to cover that. Okay. Then आपका कौन सा सेक्टर में, एग्रीकल्चरल सेक्टर है, इंडस्ट्रियल सेक्टर है. So depending upon different various sectors में, in order to promote banking, so that people have access in the banking and the money would flow, right? There are many people. We do not say those are poor people. बहुत सारे विलेज के लोग होते हैं, फार्मर्स होते हैं, उनके पास भी लाखों करोड़ों रुपए होते हैं, but all in cash. They do not have it in the bank account. Okay, and recently there was a report where there was this this pani puri wala. Okay, he had to pay a tax of somewhere around 40 lakh annually because पहले उसके पास bank account नहीं था. Then he started using that UPI scanner and he had to maintain in the bank, right? So these are the system where the bank would be, RBI would be promoting, that banking system in all the other sectors. Next slide, please. Your question, how much limit an individual can apply. So it depends upon all those factors. This is a separate question. Abhi individual ki kya criteria hai for an individual? What is his, salary? What property he is giving as a security? All those things would be there, right? So how a person would be, the limit of the individual would be different depending upon that person's uh, earning capacity. What is the minimum rate at which the bank can grant loan to individual? Is it equal to the bank rate or more? It is somewhat equal. It would not be more than that. It would be equal to what the bank rate it is. Next is, what is repo rate? Repo rates are also bank rates. I'll discuss the difference. Okay, RBI's role in data collection and publication of reports. So RBI क्या करता है? It does research. That means आप जब RBI की website पे जाओगे, you will see in the website it is mentioned. There would be a weekly and annual reports. There would be full data. What is the bank? आपको पूरा everything, even in newspaper, all these reports are you will see in day-to-day basis. कोई भी question है, RBI would always be transparent. RBI's role in data collection and publication of the reports. तो अभी inflation कैसा है, interest rate क्या है, this will be all transparent. Next point, next slide. RBI supervisory role. How can we miss this role, right? अगर RBI ने लाइसेंस नहीं दिया बैंकों को, तो बैंक cannot run, they cannot do their functions. RBI, they have to take a license from the RBI. Also the bank which are already existing, अगर उनको भी अगर नया बैंक नया ब्रांच खरीदना खोलना है, even if they have to open a new branch already existing, they yet need to take a license for that particular branch as well. फाइन, ऐसा नहीं कि SBI का ऑलरेडी ब्रांच है तो वो कितना भी खोल लेगा, नहीं, आपको हर ब्रांच के लिए नया लाइसेंस लेना पड़ेगा. नेक्स्ट स्लाइड. Okay, RBI's role in bank inspection and inquiry. Obviously, this would be also another very important role of RBI to see how the banks are functioning. क्या banks कोई fraud तो नहीं कर रहे? Is there any scam? Are they maintaining proper records, proper bank balance sheet? Everything has to be inspected. There has to be audit, right? There should be check and balances. So RBI's role in bank inspection and inquiry. There are important sections which I'll give you in this same PPT. Do not worry. It will frequently check whether the banks are executing in a proper manner or not. If it finds any of the bank doing any malpractices, it would cancel their license, right? RBI would have that power as well. Next slide. RBI's role in implementation of deposit insurance scheme. What do you mean by deposit insurance scheme? So this is your deposit insurance credit guarantee corporation. Deposit insurance credit guarantee corporation, which was established under your Banking Regulation Act to provide the insurance cover to the bank deposits. Okay, what happened to your PMC bank, right? Agar koi bank fraud, scam ho gaya, fraud पे, it's bankrupt. What about those people बेचारे जिन्होंने bank deposit किए थे? The role, also the RBI's role was to promote amongst all the other sector. So we do not want, the RBI do not want the trust of public to be impacted upon banking system. तो आपको trust maintain कराने के लिए, right? And they are giving this insurance cover for small depositors up to an amount of 5 lakh rupees. Okay, अगर कुछ bankrupt भी हो गया bank, you will be getting that refund, that deposit. RBI's role to protect the interest of the depositors. Next slide, please. Definitely, there is minimum capital required for this. I'll come to this point as well. I'll share the PowerPoint, don't worry. RBI's role in monetary policy. So we'll discuss about your bank rates, repo rates, all those points, and how this impact your inflation. Monetary policy क्या होता है? जैसे आपका एमपीसी होता है, मॉनिटरी पॉलिसी कमिटी होता है, योर लाइक योर इशू डिपार्टमेंट, योर एमपीसी वुड बी अ separate. MPC would be taking your decisions regarding what should be the bank rate. Even for a 0.02% of rate, बहुत सारा difference होता है. So bank rates are basically your long-term bank rates, which the RBI would give to the all the other banks, and repo rates are also your bank rates only, but they are for your short-term period. Short-term. Cash reserve ratio, as you know, that all the banks have to maintain a certain limit. So the cash reserve ratio would be varying from time to time. आपको नया update देखना पड़ेगा कि currently what is the cash reserve ratio that the bank has to maintain. Similarly, there is a concept called as SLR, that is statutory liquidity ratio, which you do not maintain with the RBI, but you means the bank. Bank has to maintain the रिजर्व विद इन इटसेल्फ. आपका लिक्विडिटी, आपकी इतनी हैसियत है कि नहीं दैट कुछ प्रॉब्लम आ गया तो बैंक बैंकरप्ट नहीं होनी चाहिए. तो द बैंक हैज टू मेंटेन अ रिजर्व विद द आरबीआई. द बैंक हैज टू मेंटेन द रिजर्व विद इन इटसेल्फ एज वेल. And while your audit and inspection, the RBI would be checking whether the RBI, this is also one of the conditions, whether the banks are maintaining that statutory liquidity ratio or not. अगर वो स्टैट्यूटरी लिक्विडिटी रेशियो मेंटेन नहीं कर सकता है, कैश रिजर्व रेशियो मेंटेन नहीं कर सकता है, it's behaving like it's not able to have collect those funds, after some period of notice period, it would be the license would be cancelled. You will not be able to carry out those functions of a banking company. नेक्स्ट इज योर ओपन मार्केट ऑपरेशंस. अच्छा, ये जो चारों पॉइंट्स हमने डिस्कस किए, बैंक रेट्स, रेपो रेट्स, सीआरआर एंड एसएलआर, why they are important is when you increase or decrease the rate of this particular interest. तो जैसे कि अगर बैंक्स ने इंटरेस्ट रेट बढ़ा दिया, राइट, तो मतलब हम मुझे अभी लोन का इंटरेस्ट ज्यादा देना पड़ेगा. इफ आई हैव टू पे, देन आई विल नॉट टेक अ मच ऑफ लोन. Why will I take interest मुझे ज्यादा देना पड़ रहा है तो मैं नहीं लूंगी. I'll not buy a new house. लेकिन अगर कोई ऐसा स्कीम आया कि मुझे बहुत मिनिमम रेट देने पर मुझे ना थोड़ा ही इंटरेस्ट देना है मंथली, आई कैन इजीली बाय, या ऑफ कोर्स आई विल डिस्कस सीआरआर. तो आपको मिनिमम रेट देने पर आपको यू कैन बाय अ न्यू हाउस, राइट. तो इफ द बैंक रेट्स आर वेरी चीप, you will definitely take more loan. If public would take more loan, then the banks would take loan from the RBI. अगर इंटरेस्ट रेट कम हो गया, जहां पे इंटरेस्ट रेट ज्यादा कर दिया, people will not take loan, and similarly the bank will also not take loan from the RBI. So what happens? It is controlling, the credit control हो रहा है यहाँ पे. We are controlling the flow of money in the economy. अगर पैसा अगर मूव नहीं हो रहा है, इधर से उधर नहीं जा रहा है, in that case you can control your inflation depending. अभी इन्फ्लेशन रेट का टारगेट होता है 2%. 2% से ज्यादा हमको इन्फ्लेशन ना हो. वी डू नॉट वांट डिफ्लेशन, वी डोंट वांट इन्फ्लेशन एज वेल. बट जब तक थोड़ा रेट इंटरेस्ट रेट हाई नहीं होता है, तो हाउ विल द इकोनॉमी परफॉर्म? So there should be slight changes depending upon that the MPC would be taking the decision. Bank rates are the for the long term period, and repo rates are what time periods are less in repo rates. What is CRR? CRR is your cash reserve ratio, which you have to maintain with the RBI. Okay. And SLR you have to maintain within yourself. Already spoke. When the bank become bankrupt, who will pay the saving accounts holder? So this would come under your third day lecture. We'll discuss about bankruptcy. Okay. RDP Act, SURFACE Act. ये आपका point we will cover there. Okay. Next is, I know Parveen जो आप बोल रहे हो that the rule should be rule, right? So we are discussing about law, how it is, आप इसको apply कैसे करते हो? How the government is taking the decision, or let's say what the judge would take the decision depending upon that situation depends upon your practicality and not upon what laws we have. Next is your RBI's role in monetary policy. The qualitative measures, okay, the quantitative measures we have done, your rationing of credits would be under your qualitative measures would be RBI would fix the maximum credit amount for commercial bank. Okay, उधर public sector bank भी है, cooperative banks भी है, agricultural bank भी है, तो सारे सेक्टर्स में कितना लोन ले सकते हैं, कौन से बैंक्स को हम दे सकते हैं, आरबीआई वो भी मेजर पहले से ही फिक्स कर देगा. So that is also it is controlling it is having the power of how much loan that particular bank or sector would be taking from that. Next slide.
Ma'am, it is the next slide.
Next slide, please.
Ma'am, this is the next slide.
No, after this. This is done. ये हो गया है. It's not moving. Okay, go to the previous slide. Previous slide, please. Okay, that was the last slide he meant to say. Okay, then we'll do with certain important sections. I think we have just 5 minutes to wrap up. So the important sections would be shared with you. Okay, like the banks, one important thing which I would like to share is banking company has to, as the name suggests, company, they have to be registered under your Companies Act. Even let's say RBI bank की nature जब आप देखोगे, तो you will see that even RBI would be having, RBI does not have to be registered under any other company law, right? It is an apex bank itself. So, but RBI would be having the nature that of a company. That means it is having the perpetuity, you know, it can sue, all those, whatever the criteria of normal companies, it would be RBI would be having those. So all those are your important parts. You can go, your first 2 sections would be about that it extends to the whole of India, right? Then we see that the central government gives directions to the RBI. RBI के केस में ये सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट डिसाइड करता है किसको अपॉइंट करना है. कंपोजिशन ऑफ द बोर्ड ऑफ डायरेक्टर्स, आरबीआई के बोर्ड ऑफ डायरेक्टर्स कौन कौन है? दिस इज वन ऑफ द वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट क्वेश्चन. That there would be 1 governor, there are 4 deputy governors. Okay, then we have 4 directors plus 10 directors and 2 government officials. They are all expert in their field of law, finance. Then we also have a local board. Local board means when you see the schedule 1 of RBI Act, there are 4 zones: north, east, west, south. ये सारे 4 zones को मिला के that would be a local board. Then section 10 and all these sections would talk about what are the criteria when the directors could be. Yes, the PPT would be shared. Disqualifications of the directors. Then the same, अगर एक बार आपने appoint कर लिया, like the person has gone insolvent or if there are any criminal charges against him, those people can, after being appointed as director, can be removed from their position. Next point, next slide. तो सेंट्रल बोर्ड का मीटिंग होगा. देन दिस 2 sections are very important. 17 and 19, it talks about the businesses which, do you want me to take another 5-10 minutes? Come to the previous slide. 17 and 19 are very important, which talks कि RBI कौन से functions कर सकता है और 19 RBI कौन से functions नहीं कर सकता है. Similar provision you will see in your Banking Regulation Act कि banks कौन से functions कर सकता है और कौन सा functions नहीं कर सकता है. Next slide. So these are the very, in short, you can go through the title of the sections कि banks के क्या, RBI के क्या obligation है to transact गवर्नमेंट बिजनेस. सो ये जो सारे सेक्शंस है ना, मैंने आपको ऑलरेडी डिस्कस कर दिया है ड्यूरिंग डिस्कसिंग द पावर ऑफ द आरबीआई. You remember that RBI function as the banker to all the banks. So यही वही है कि government business. Then RBI has a right to transact. वही वाला part है. Very easy. RBI has an exclusive right to issue the currency notes. There is a issue department जो पैसा issue करेगा. Obviously पैसा issue कर रहा है, it should be kept separate. Then what do you mean by denomination of notes? क्या क्या करेंसी हो सकता है? 500 rupees, 100 rupees, पहले 1000 rupees आके बंद हो गया, 2000 rupees आके बंद हो गया. तो ये सब लॉ एक्ट आते हैं, अमेंडमेंट होते हैं. Then what is the form of bank notes? बैंक नोट्स में स्टैंप लगता है कि नहीं? अलग से स्टैंप नहीं लगेगा. द गवर्नर ने उसने प्रॉमिस लिखा हुआ है. ओके, सिग्नेचर ऑफ द गवर्नर है. ऑल दिस फॉर्म ऑफ बैंक नोट्स. देन बैंक नोट इज अ लीगल टेंडर, मीन्स सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट ने ही गारंटी दे दिया, आप पैसे प्रोड्यूस करो एंड टेक द वैल्यू ऑफ दैट पर्टिकुलर गुड्स. यू डू नॉट हैव टू स्टैम्प इट. ओके, इट इज अ लीगल टेंडर इन इटसेल्फ. डीमोनेटाइजेशन व्हिच हैपेंड इन द ईयर 2016, 8 नवंबर क्या हुआ था? डीमोनेटाइजेशन. वो लॉ कहाँ पे है? यहाँ पे सेक्शन 26(2). देन इशू ऑफ 1 rupee नोट, इट वुड बी इशूड बाय द गवर्नमेंट. Next slide, please. Write down your doubts in the chat. It's okay. Next slide. Okay. Bank is exempted from the stamp duty discussed. Central government supersede the central board. मतलब हर बारी अगर सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट और आरबीआई के बीच में कॉन्फ्लिक्ट है, कौन who will win? Who will have the upper position? It is a central government. Next is asset of the issue department. I told you कि RBI would be in the currencies against its asset, against the gold value or whatever the bond or the securities it has. अगर इशू डिपार्टमेंट में वो इतना एसेट नहीं है तो वो उतना करेंसी नोट्स इशू नहीं कर सकते हैं. सो द टोटल अमाउंट ऑफ asset of the issue department has to be 200 crore. It is somewhere around some 1,000 lakh crore right now. ओके, ये तो मिनिमम होना चाहिए, जो कि बहुत 1948 से यही चल रहा है. 200 CR and 100 and out of which this amount should be in gold and the other should be in your credit securities. Just a minute. Yes. So we had central government would supersede the central board. Then, okay, liability of the issue department. Total amount of notes which are in circulation, जितने भी notes circulation में है वो, it would be the liability of the issue department. Why? Because वहाँ पे गवर्नर ने प्रॉमिस किया है ना, ये पैसा के वैल्यू में जो ऑब्जेक्ट है इनको दे दो, क्योंकि गारंटी मैं दे रहा हूँ. So the issue department would be having the liability. Then we have what is the obligation of the government, what would be the value of CRR for the scheduled bank. All those sections you can do. Next slide, please. Can you explain the concept of gold security for the notes issue? जब आपके पास इतना गोल्ड होता है, गोल्ड का वैल्यू you know how important it is. Against that gold value which it has in your asset डिपार्टमेंट में जो है, उसके अगेंस्ट में ही करेंसी इशू होगा, राइट? Next is all these chapters are also mentioned under your RBI Act, which deals with your NBFCs. Then there is monetary policy committee, general provision, penalties on non-compliance, then collection and furnishing of credit information. So these are a few chapters. Next slide. I'll just take another 5 minutes. Next. So we saw why Banking Regulation Act came into picture was after your independence. How we had after not just independence, but it was your Second World War II. World War II भी चल रहा था ना, तो पहला हमारा आया RBI Act because of World War I, right? Second ये act आया because of World War II, plus we had independence also by that time, right? So your Banking Regulation Act discussing other provisions relating to license. License हमने RBI में discuss नहीं किया, आपने power में देखा, but वो power आपको RBI ही देता है. Okay. Then all the other governance norms, that what is reserve requirement, what is the capital adequacy, all this will be discussed under your Banking Regulation Act. Next slide, please. Preamble of the act would be that what is the reason of having this act? To consolidate and amend the law related to banking. So this act says कि सारे जो भी laws है, regarding your banking system, it would be here. This banking, जैसे RBI हर बैंक को regulate करता है, Banking Regulation Act says that ये regulation act, it would not apply to certain banks like which are dealing into primarily agricultural. वहां पे NABARD आ जाएगा पिक्चर में. NABARD would be the regulating thing. तो यहाँ पे Banking Regulation Act apply नहीं होगा. Next, your Banking Regulation Act essential. So again, your first sections would deal about what are the, it would extend to the whole of the country, India. Then the other important sections would be your related to, just a minute. Yeah, power of central government to suspend the operation of the Banking Regulation Act. Like in case of your RBI Act, here also the central government would be having the power, okay, to suspend this particular act. Then we have definition. What do you mean by banking, banking company? ये सारे definitions starting में हमने discuss कर दिया. To grant the loan and to accept the deposit. Okay, ये primary function है, ये आपके definition में आएगा. Then कौन से functions, like in case of RBI कर सकता है, कौन से functions नहीं कर सकता है. Similarly, your section 6, your section 8 would say that what bank can function, what the bank cannot function. Prohibition of trading. अगर आपने कुछ businesses करने लग गए हो तो आप NBFCs हो ना, you are not a bank anymore. Next slide. So the section 9 also says that you cannot hold on to any property, immovable properties, okay, until and unless you are using it for, the quarters for your staff or as a bank. Then section 11, the requirement for minimum paid up capital. So there was a question कि कितना amount आपको बैंक के कितना minimum paid up capital होना चाहिए, कितना reserve होना चाहिए. So everything will be mentioned under your Banking Regulation Act, and it would be updated time to time. It regulates what your paid up capital would be, what is subscribed capital for each bank, and for different sectors it would be different. Then section 17, it mandates the creation of a reserve fund with a 20% of profits transfer to this fund before any dividend is declared. Okay, you have to have a reserve fund. आपको CRR भी पता है, requires a non-scheduled bank also to maintain the CRR. Then it grants RBI the power to control advances of banking loans. Advances means the loan, banking company के RBI would be controlling, RBI का power. Next point, next slide. Next slide, please. Okay, this is about, it prohibits bank from opening new branches, licenses, publishing information. ये सारे points हमने discuss कर लिया about your power of RBI. We are done with this. Then we have, power to give directions, power of RBI to give direction. Next slide, please. RBI would be the official liquidator. कभी अगर बैंक bankrupt हो गया तो RBI would be the one वो जो liquidify का process करना है. Then the other powers of RBI, like RBI has to apply it. अगर किसी भी बैंक को suspend कराना है तो central government would ultimately take the thing. Power to inspect, power to return an information, audit, inspection जो भी है, penalties in case of non-compliance. These points are also discussed. Next slide, please. Yeah, so thank you so much for being there till, and I hope this lecture was beneficial for all of you. And most of you might be having, most of you would be my student, okay, who has their exams, upcoming exams. Most of you could be absent in your lectures and had a quick revision for you. So all the best for your exams, and I hope it has helped you in a bit. Thank you so much. And thank you, Legal Vidya, for conducting this session with me.
Ma'am, can you take doubts today or tomorrow?
I can take the doubts, but I think most of the doubts were cleared already. Is there any questions? Also, is this 14s like
Just a second,
I
ma'am.
think there are very few questions. Sorry, I was on mute. What I said is like, I think you can just drop in those questions, very important questions. If there is something not yet solved, I can take those questions tomorrow.
Ma'am, there is one doubt. The student of Nipa Gupta.
Hmm.
The
Yes.
form terms like bank rate, repo rate, inversely proportional to inflation. What is the relation between that?
What is the?
There are total four terms like bank rate, repo rate,
Yes, yes, yes.
inversely proportional to inflation. What is the relation between that?
I did not mention they are inversely proportional. What is the relation between them? I did not get this question exactly because we are not dealing with relation of them together. Okay, bank rates, repo rates, inversely proportional to the inflation. Okay, I think I already discussed this. One second. So this is how it is a monetary policy, how they control the credit supply in the country, how they control the inflation. अगर आपने बैंक रेट्स हाई कर दिया है तो आप मैंने ये पॉइंट डिस्कस किया था ना बैंक रेट अगर आप हाई कर देते हो देन you will not be taking much loan. अगर बैंक रेट कम कर दिया you will be taking loan. That means if you take loan, yes, Niva Gupta, do you have any other question? So, but if you take loan, that means that there is a flow in the economy, flow of the currency in the economy. So that's how it controls the inflation. अगर आप पैसे खर्च ही नहीं करोगे, it depends upon the price value would. If you do not spend, the price value would decrease, right? It would stuck. You want people to spend money so that the price value would be also increasing. We also have something called as CPI, your customer. Uh, 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 it's a unit which measures the inflation. Okay, how a particular customer would be buying products, and depending upon we can come to a situation where we can see that whether the inflation has gone up or not. I hope this clears your doubt, Niva. Yeah, you got it. Okay. Okay.
Thank you so
Welcome.
much, ma'am, for such a wonderful session on the day one of our workshop on banking laws and NI Act. Tomorrow we will have a session on NI Act, and then we will tell you the timing. So thank you so much who have joined today. Then we will send you the link of that tomorrow. Thank you everyone. Thank you, ma'am, for taking such a wonderful session. Have a nice day. And the feedback form will be provided tomorrow.
Thank you everyone for your wonderful feedback.